Welcome back to another video of Sports Talk with Kendrick McKnight. And today, in this video, I will be diving into the state of wrestling today, more so WWE. Because, like I said, I'm more of a WWE fan than any other wrestling company. I grew up on WWE, so all of my videos will be about WWE. So, the state of WWE, the state of wrestling in general, you know what I'm saying? So, is it good? Is it bad? I'm gonna dive into what wrestling is and, you know, breaking down people that don't even watch wrestling like that. I'm going to let you know what it is. When it comes to the good guys, the bad guys, the impact that social media has had on wrestling, the positives and the negatives between those in that perspective. Something that really gets to me personally, like the fans, one minute they like this guy, then the minute they hate him. One minute they hate him, one minute they like him. It's just that non-consistency that kind of gets on my nerves a handful of times. So I'm gonna be diving into that. The differences between, even though I wasn't alive, majority of the 90s of wrestling, but I'll be diving into the differences between wrestling in the 90s, 2000s, in the 2010s, and currently in 2020. Also, I would be diving into the reason why there's no more legit stars in the WWE. When you think about legends, absolute legends, superstars in wrestling, you think about the Shawn Michaels, the Triple H's, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who in today's wrestling can you really mention within those names? You can't. You want to know why? I will be diving into that. And lastly, I will be going into what's in store for what's in store for wrestling in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So, the state of wrestling today, is it good? Is it bad? So, as a wrestling fan, for me, yeah, it's good, but it can be bad as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as the goods, you have so much. One of the best things going on right now, as far as wrestling in today's WWE, like there's so much talent. Probably the best locker room of talent that WWE has ever had, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? You had your, like I said, the Triple H's, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Stone Cold, but who was those guys before them? Or who were the mid cards? Who was their, what I'm saying? You have to really, you can't really think like that. So the good, like I said, is that there's so much talent that can be on your TV screen and have so many opportunities. And I feel like that's the bad part. There's so much talent, though, to the point where everybody can get the opportunities that they deserve at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So, top of my head, just being me, being biased, I think of guys like EC3 not getting opportunity, not not getting the opportunity as far as having more one-on-one matches on actual television, not getting at least a shot at a U.S. title or Intercontinental title, being in a tag team at least with someone. I think about Apollo Crews, a guy that has so much athleticism and such a great physique, and just losing every single week. And when his music hits, just absolute no pop. This guy has every tools in the toolbook that can go. EC3, Ali, Mustafa Ali, Apollo Crews. Even though Buddy Murphy's on television as one of the disciples of Seth Rollins's, heel group faction right now. But still, so also I think about Cedric Alexander, a former cruiserweight champion, one of the longest reigning cruiserweight champions of all time, continuously losing for what, right? So I think that's the bad part as far as wrestling, because you have so much talent to the point where you don't even know what to do with them. So you just, this guy here, put this guy here, where really this guy should be there and that guy should be there. You're just being a little biased towards this guy because, he's second or third or fourth generation. So versus this guy working his butt off in the indies and going here and going there and going here and going there. And now he's in the WWE and now he's floundering and floundering and floundering and floundering. Why? Because we'll never know, right? So we're not in that creative space. So all we can do as fans is just watch. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty unfortunate, how so much good talent is just get wasted to the point where they don't even want to be a part of this environment of WWE. They just rather go off to other companies, and that's one of the craziest things about it. Like, there's some guys in other companies like a AEW, like a TNA, that refuse to come here because they know that their fates are not in their hands. And that's one thing about WWE that's like crazy to me. Like, you have scripted promos, you're not in control of what your character does. And then even if you have an idea for your character, it's not 100% that's going to get approved of. You got to go to this person, you got to go to this person, you got to go to this person, and then ultimately the man himself, Vince McMahon, right? Ultimately for him to prove it. So for me, that's the good and the bad part for me personally. You have so much great talent, but at the same time, you don't know how to use them. So just to backtrack, we all know, okay? We all know that wrestling, you don't even have to be a wrestling fan to understand and know this. Wrestling isn't real. It's scripted entertainment. It's predetermined. It's pretty much a work. You and your opponent are doing your jobs to work the crowd, get a reaction from the crowd. If you're a babyface, and I'll break that down what that is. If you're a babyface, your job is to get the crowd to want to cheer for you and want to win. As a heel, and I'll break that down what that is too. As a heel, your job is to do whatever it is possible for the crowd to just not like you and just piss them off pretty much. So yeah, it's a work. You guys have to do what it takes to get a reaction. For me, I've always said, whether the crowd boos you or cheers you, once your music hit and you go through that curtain, as long as you get a reaction, you got them, just like that. I would rather get booed out the building versus my music hit. I go through the crowd, I go through the curtain, and the crowd just sits there. That's the worst feeling. You know what I'm saying? So I would rather people just boo me and or cheer me versus people not really feeling me and I'm not getting that reaction that I personally want. So now it's back to the drawing board of ideas, what I want to do. Now I have to pitch it and hope and pray that it works and I get approved. You know what I'm saying? So wrestling, yeah, it's scripted, it's predetermined. The superstars know what's going to happen before we do, obviously, because they have to perform it. But what really gets to me is the F word, fake. Like, it's it's not fake at all, because these guys and girls are away from their families, away from their loved ones, away from their friends for majority more of the year, majority of the year, just to entertain us, just to put their bodies on the line, just for our entertainment. And there's some parts of a match where these guys are really hitting each other with this move and this move and that move and this move, just to get to the point where, okay, now it's time to do this that we stripped it for, right? So that's something that I had to personally understand and learn, that, like, even when I was young, I thought all this was real. Like, oh, this really meant to happen. How crazy is it that this person really, wow, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Wow. Then as I got older, stripped it, so yeah, that's just what wrestling is, you know what I'm saying? So it's a work to get to the point where you get the crowd where you want them. And once you got them where you want them, then the crowd's going to want that match or this person or that person more featured to get the opportunity to go for a championship or go to a main event spot at WrestleMania. So yeah, like that fake stuff, I don't really play about that, because people really put their bodies on the line for us. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I have all types of respect for the people, not just in WWE, but wrestlers all around the globe that do this and really hold their craft to this. So my all types of salutes to wrestlers all around the world that does this. So as a baby face, though, a baby face is a good guy or a good girl, like the person that you cheer when they come out, the guy that you want to win the match, you know what I'm saying? And the heel is the bad guy, pretty much, the guy that you don't want to win, pretty much. So what I wanted to get into really is like the responses in today's wrestling as far as baby faces and heels. Now, the baby face, I just said, is the people that you cheer, and the heels are the ones that you boo. But for the past, I don't know, man, like 5, 6, 7 years now, especially the last 3, it's literally been reversed. The babies are getting booed and the heels are getting cheered. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. Like, for example, like, as you see, these 3 are perfect examples: Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins. And let's break all 3 of these guys down. So Dean Ambrose was looked upon, really, at least I did, when the Shield was together. Dean Ambrose was looked more upon as the leader of the Shield. That's how I looked at it anyway. So because he was the United States champion, Rollins and Reigns were the tag champions. You know what I'm saying? So I looked at Rollins, Ambrose, like, okay, he's the leader, obviously. So, and especially he held the title for so long. So I've always looked at him as the guy. So whenever it's time for these guys to split up, because I just knew these guys weren't going to last forever, Ambrose is going to be at the pinnacle. So Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns split up, and Ambrose just does his own thing, just goes to the back burner because WWE's eyes is more so on Reigns and Rollins, obviously Reigns, and Ambrose was really floundering, really, and so Ambrose has, okay feuds with, guys like Bray Wyatt, guys like Cesaro, had solid matches with Cesaro, and he had a couple of Intercontinental title reigns, solid feuds with Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, and he was cheered. He was the guy, and people were crying, literally, saying that this guy, he's the best member of the Shield. He's better than Reigns. He's better than Rollins, and nah. And he deserved the world title because by that time, people that was crying for this, Reigns already had like 2 world title opportunities and won them. I think this was like after WrestleMania 32, something like that, somewhere around that time. So Reigns just won the title. So, and people were crying for Ambrose to win a title, right? And the company listened, and the company listened and said, okay, it's Money in the Bank time. It's 2016. Money in the Bank, Ambrose, Alberto Del Rio, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Chris Jericho. Great match. Dean Ambrose wins the match. And the crazy thing is, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins had a WWE World Heavyweight Championship match that same night at Money in the Bank 2016. And obviously Reigns coming in as a champion. And Rollins defeats Roman Reigns to capture his second world title, WWE World title, because he was holding the title before Reigns. He got the title before Reigns because of winning the Money in the Bank and cashing in one of the greatest cash in, if not the greatest cash in at WrestleMania 31. So he was the first one to capture the world title within this group of Shield. He lost it only because of injury. Reigns won it at Survivor Series, defeating Ambrose, only for Sheamus to defeat Roman when he cashed in his Money in the Bank. And that had a crazy thing going on, and he ultimately won the title back. Then he lost it again at the Royal Rumble, in that Royal Rumble match to Triple H, only to get it back at WrestleMania 32. Now back to Money in the Bank 2016. So people are crying, Ambrose need to be the champion. Rollins defeat Reigns in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. Next thing you know, Dean Ambrose cashes in his Money in the Bank on the exact same night that he won it on his brethren, Seth Rollins. 1, 2, 3. Dean Ambrose is the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Everybody should just go home happy and excited, in which they were. Their guy is the new WWE Champion, right? So he had a great feud. He had a great, good reign. He ultimately faced the first and the last Shield triple threat at Battleground 2016, in which Dean Ambrose won, moved on to SmackDown with the WWE title. And after that, that's just when it started to go down, right? So Reigns goes to Raw. Ambrose goes to SmackDown with the WWE title. And Ambrose faces Dolph Ziggler for the WWE title. So, see, me, first of all, I was very excited for that match. Two guys that I genuinely like as far as characters. I've been a fan of Dolph Ziggler since forever. So finally, for him to finally get a WWE title opportunity, I was just mind blown. So people are acting like they're excited, this and that. Okay. And the match happens, and people are booing the match out of the building. Why? This is your guy. You guys were clamoring for Ambrose to win the title. And, he ultimately got it. He ultimately retained. But nobody was, going crazy, right? Why? Like, what's going on? But, okay. Then later on, AJ Styles comes through. The AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose feud comes, and that's when it really went crazy. Nobody's messing with Dean Ambrose now. Nobody. It's crazy. 1 minute you messing with the man, you crying and you whining for him to get a championship opportunity. The company finally listened and gave the opportunity, and he wins the title. Now, a couple months later, you're dumping on him, taking a dump on him. It's like, I'm going to dive into that soon, actually. And it's just crazy. And when the AJ Dean feud popped off, it was because AJ was the heel in that match. He was the heel in that feud, and he was cheered. Dean Ambrose was booed. He was the baby face. He was the baby face. You know what I'm saying? So that's the problem that I have. Fans 1 minute they say they want this and they want that, and they want this, and they want that, and then a miracle happens and the company listens to you, and they give this guy that you've been clamoring for an opportunity, and they give it to you, and you act excited for a minute, and then next thing you know, wow. That's what I don't really care for when it comes to WWE. As far as its fans, Roman Reigns, for example, he was always looked upon as the guy. He was always looked upon as the guy. He was going to be the next superstar. John Cena was supposed to, because the torch was passed from The Rock to Cena, and Cena and Reigns, and he was going to continue that legacy. And in the early going, the fans won't having it. They won't having it at all. You know what I'm saying? And he genuinely had to work. He had to work because the fans, they knew what was going on. They knew what the situation was. No, we're not going to accept you. You got to work. You're not gonna just go push you. They're not gonna just gonna. The company's not gonna just push you to the point where you're getting shoved down our throats. Even I won't feel it at first, and I love Reigns since the Shield, but I won't have it. You gotta put in some work, bro. You gotta put in some work. You gotta do something for me to just accept you as the megastar. The Shield only broke up literally a minute ago. Now you're supposed to be the big dog that he is now. No, man, you gotta put in some work, and I've always respected more of Seth Rollins's in ring work versus Reigns. Dean Ambrose was my favorite character, but as far as the in ring work, I've always been a fan of Seth Rollins more than both of them. And so in that aspect, I knew that Rollins' turn was coming as well. But I wasn't expecting this massive push for Roman. And so he was just getting booed out the building. Everywhere he went, everywhere he just... And at this point, he was still coming out the crowd as if the Shield, still had the same music, still had the same come to the ring theme, come through the crowd. And people weren't feeling it. I was like, okay, same thing. But at the same time, you got to do your own thing. Like, you got to separate yourself from the crowd. You got to separate yourself from the group, And yeah, he was supposed to be the baby. He was getting booed out the building. And that was that. Like, he had to really work. He had to really, really work. I feel like for me personally, the match that really got me over with Roman and finally accept him was, it had to be, I'll say the two matches that he had was AJ Styles, Extreme Rules and Payback. Those two matches were, for me, even though I personally wanted AJ to win, but those two matches right there was eye openers for me. He stood toe to toe, not once but twice, with arguably the greatest wrestler in the world right now. Even then, right? So I was like, okay, he the big dog. He can do something. All right. So moving forward, he had a little thing, like I said, with Rollins. Rollins came back and attacked him, coming back from his injury. And then that led to him and Rollins and Money in the Bank. Then that led to the Shield Triple Threat. And I don't even remember what happened after that. But he had to really work. And then the whole Brock and Roman thing started, and I'm just like, oh no. Even before that they did, but at the same time, I just wasn't a fan of that whole dynamic. I really wasn't feeling that. So the fans were just booing him out the building, and that's what Rollins Rollins was always looked at as an indie darling. Guys that pay their dues on the indie scene, independent circuit. So he was always beloved by the fans. So this guy would never be booed. This guy would never, get that scrutiny from the fans. Right? Wrong. So, in 2018, one of arguably Seth Rollins' best years, the year of Seth Rollins, amazing year. He goes to WrestleMania 34. He wins the title at WrestleMania against Finn Balor and The Miz. Captures the IC title. He moves forward to face off against The Miz again at the following pay-per-view. An instant classic in that match. And then the entire summer of 2018, he had crazy multiple match feud with Dolph Ziggler, which were top notch, absolute top notch from top to bottom. Those matches was just absolute amazing. So in within that feud, it was back and forth. 1 minute Seth Rollins had the title, Dolph Ziggler had the title. Rollins, Ziggler, right? So it was moving forward. um, Rollins lose the title to, I don't even remember who he lost the title to, but he lost it, right? So moves forward, moves on, right? Moves on and faces who? Dean Ambrose. Why? Because at this time, Reigns is just announced he had leukemia, right? So, in that same night, Ambrose attacked him. Ambrose Rollins in that crazy battle, and Rollins wins at TLC. So, Royal Rumble comes. 2019 Royal Rumble comes, and Seth Rollins wins the Royal Rumble. Just beloved. Now it's time for him to choose his opponent. Brock Lesnar, the champion, or Daniel Bryan. Chooses Brock Lesnar. WrestleMania comes. The first match of the night, Rollins Lesnar for the WWE Universal Championship. Seth Rollins wins the match. The crowd goes crazy. Just insane. Seth Rollins is the guy. He just slayed the beast. He slayed the beast. So, moving forward, he has great matches, great performances, insane. Now is the time where this is where the turn comes. The turn comes where Rollins defeats Braun Strowman. Clash of Champions. I was there, by the way. Charlotte, North Carolina. So, Rollins defeats Braun Strowman at Clash of Champions. After the show, before the show ended, who comes out? The Fiend. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, comes out and attacks him, which pretty much lay claim what's going to happen next, right? So, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Seth Rollins, Universal Championship, Hell in a Cell. Everybody was just clamoring for this Fiend, clamoring for Bray Wyatt to become the champion because of this character and how unique it is. And so, people wanted it. People wanted it. People were crying for it. So, throughout that entire match, literally, Seth Rollins was getting booed for every little offensive move that he did in that match. All because of this brand new character of The Fiend. And no matter what Rollins did to Bray Wyatt, steel chair shot to no prevail, to sledgehammer, to steel steps, nothing will put down The Fiend. And what really ticked me off in that match was it's a Hell in a Cell match, which means no disqualification. No disqualification. This match cannot end unless it's a pinfall or submission. We can attest to this, right? So Seth Rollins literally piled steel steps. I think it was steel steps onto The Fiend. A toolbox on him, over his head. A steel chair, I think. And then the referee was like, "No, don't do it, right? No." And Rollins is like just in a phase where it's like he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to tame The Fiend, and to the point where he's second guessing himself. And at this point, he just goes ballistic and hits the Fiend with the sledgehammer on top of the toolbox on his face. The bell rings. Huh? The bell rings and the match is over. Last time I checked, this is a Hell in a Cell match, which means no disqualification. Anything can go. This was just incredibly insane. Incredibly insane. And that's when the turn happened. And people just taking all types of dumps on Seth Rollins. Why? He's a baby. No, because everybody was just going crazy and loving the Fiend, and you guys were just clamoring for this guy to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. He did. You loved it. I know you did. I saw you in the front row, and you just thumbs down on him all day, all night. For what? Why? And I understand. And this is another thing that really gets to me. Like, it's not the character's fault. It's not the talent's fault. What they do, they get given a script, and they got to do it. It's not their fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to be a part of this company, you have to accept the fact that you're not in control of your character. You're not in control of what you do on a week-to-week basis. You get handed a script, you get handed what you're gonna do that night, and you gotta perform it. You might tweak it a little bit, but that's just what it is. Some people are gonna like it, some people are not gonna like it. Some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna hate it. But that's just what it is. You can't satisfy every single person in the WWE. That's just how life goes. And so that's what it was. And people just booed Rollins out the building. Just booed him out the building for what? For in that crazy sense, yes, I get that. But that's just what it is. 1 minute they like you, 1 minute they don't. You know what I'm saying? So Baby's getting booed. The Shield. All 3 members. Heels getting cheered. Kevin Owens is a prime example. One of the best guys on the mic in WWE right now. I think another guy that's mainly a heel that gets cheered is Samoa Joe. Kevin Owens is Samoa Joe, one of the best right now on the mic ever. Which isn't, I don't really get upset or feel a way more about heels getting cheered versus babies getting booed. Like, I feel like heels getting cheered is more so a compliment versus a baby getting booed, which is like a crazy thing. Like, here you are doing your absolute best to get this crowd to like you, and they're just not accepting it. Versus here you are being mean, rude, and disrespectful, or cocky, arrogant, and pompous, and the crowd is feeling it and they cheer you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just where it is. So I look at guys like Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, for example, that get cheered for their work in the ring and for their promos and how they carry themselves as far as their characters is concerned, which is a cool thing. So baby's getting healed, baby's getting cheered, baby's getting booed, and heels getting cheered. So that's just what it is. So I feel like with social media within wrestling it can be a good thing and a bad thing as well. Like, as far as the good things, it's like with social media, it can be the company is more global and people can follow it and people can see what's going on. And with social media, like, it's more accessible you can be more accessible to your favorite superstars, your favorite male superstars, your favorite female superstars, and see who they really are as people. But at the same time, the negative of social media is that, number one, just overshare. People just put their entire life story on social media, which I'm not a fan of at all. And at the same time, with social media as well, like outside of the superstars, you have these people that feel like they are wrestling enthusiasts and knows absolutely everything in the world when it comes to wrestling, and all these dirt sheets and all these crazy things that I do not like. And nobody can change my mind. I do not like it. Like, I'm still at that era. I still love that feeling of not knowing what's going to happen until I see the show. Like, that's just who I am. That's just me. I still love surprises. Like I remember this one time. It was New Year's Evolution 2006 when John Cena defended and retained an Elimination Chamber match, and he ultimately lost it to Edge when he cashed in, the first ever cash in. And I remember, like, obviously there was no social media like that, and this was like when I was in middle school. So I remember, like, obviously I didn't have enough money, or I couldn't convince my mom to buy the pay-per-view. So I was just excited. I was just worried, like, did John on that Sunday night? I was just worried, like, did John retain? Did he? Oh, did John? Because Johnson was the man for me, and so I remember Monday Night Raw the next night. I was just watching the preview, and the show comes on, and like they show the highlights of what happened, and John won the match. I was like, ah, yes, yes, sir. Just that feeling of excitement, just that feeling of not knowing, right? So that's what I love. And then I got upset because Edge beat him, and I hated Edge for a long time because of that. But at the same time, like, just that feeling of not knowing gets me every single time. So that's what I love. That's what I love the most about wrestling. And like I said, the impact of social media has definitely made its mark within wrestling, because anybody can just go on social media and say this and say that, and they don't like this and they don't like that. If it wasn't for social media, it would be no Divas Revolution. If it wasn't for social media, there would be no Daniel Bryan, ultimately winning the titles at WrestleMania 30. So it can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing as well. So it's all in perspective and what you like. And as for us fans, like, we have the choice to like a certain superstar or dislike, or some people even hate certain superstars, which I've never truly understood that, because if you really understood this business, obviously it's scripted, obviously it's a work, like, but at the same time, certain people just take this to the extreme and truly dislike a guy and just talk all type of trash on social media and say all these crazy things. And when you really think about it, it's just a job. It's just it's like a regular job. It's just this: you're overexposed, you're on television, and you're wrestling over 300 days out of the year. So it's just like a regular job. It's just more global. You know what I'm saying? They have a family to feed. They have their wives. They have their kids. You know what I'm saying? So they gotta do what they gotta do. But at the same time, like I said, it gets handed a script, and they gotta do it. And you're not going to please everybody. You're not going to please every single fan in the world, and that's okay. But for you to just completely dump and completely just trash a certain superstar for this storyline, for this doing this and saying that, doing this and doing that, but I mean, like, it is what it is. And it's okay not to like a certain character for multiple reasons. Like for Roman, like, yeah, he was getting shoved down our throats. The company wanted him to be the guy. They wanted him to be the man when he clearly wasn't ready. So in that aspect, I truly get it. But as far as, I think of guys like an AJ, maybe like Rollins, KO, Joe, you know, guys that you adored coming up, but once they got here and did certain things and did certain storylines and feuds and had certain matches, then it's like it's that crazy switch. Now you don't like them. Now you hate them because of this certain slot that they're in. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, there's so much talent to the point where a certain guy can't be in the main event every single time, you know. And then at that point, oh, they're just getting shoved down our throats. Because it's kind of like this, right? If you put a certain guy in the main event, right, for 4 or 5 months, and you're building this character up to be the guy for that particular time, and then it's like, oh, this guy's getting shoved down our throats. The company listens. Okay, let's move this guy down to the mid card, or maybe at the beginning of the show. Now, oh, this guy deserves better. He should be back. It's like it's a lose-lose situation, right? So whether it's men or women, so it's just that unbalance of what you like. You say you like this, then when they give it to you, then it's like you just, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just weird as far as fans nowadays. It's that flip floppy. You say you want one thing, then you don't want it. Then you say, it's just that weird thing that I don't like. It's just that non-consistency where, yeah, it's weird. So, and I understand. It's like it's within today's wrestling versus, in the ruthless aggression versus the attitude. As far as like the attitude, is like it was literally raw. Any type of storyline that you could think of, they were doing it. The Rocks, the Stone Colds, Triple H, DX. They were doing all types of crazy stuff that I wasn't even allowed to watch, even on YouTube. Just looking up wrestling stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it was just crazy. And then moving forward to the 2000s, the ruthless aggression, as The Rock was moving forward to movies and Stone Cold was moving forward into retirement, it was like there needed to be more stars. There's needed to be more, just more of those it guys. That's them standard barriers of who's going to take the flagship, who's going to be the guy. Then you had guys like John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle. I think I said Kurt Angle twice, but okay. Booker T, Edge, Christian, all these guys to move forward into that generation. And then in the 10s, of course, you still had Cena, Batista was going on, and Randy Orton, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, who was getting ready for retirement in a couple of years, and all these guys, and now here we are in the 20s. So, different levels. Obviously, people are pretty upset, obviously, with the the PG era is just so different than what people grew up into. But that's just what it is. Like WWE is always about evolving and involvement and growing within the time. And it's just like the example that I said with the fans. Like if they continue to do what they did back then, people would be complaining, "Oh, that was so 20 years ago. That was so 90s." And now that they're doing what they're doing now, it's like, "Oh, I wish it would be like the 90s. I wish it would have been like back then." So it's just like, what do you want? You know what I'm saying? So just babies crying, just whining and just going crazy on the internet. But at the same time, you still at every show. But I mean, like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the problems with WWE right now, because you have all this great talent, this young talent, this solid young talent, and there's no legit top star in the WWE. I mean, of course, you would think of, okay, the Roman Reigns, the Seth Rollinses. Uh, who else? Who can you put at that plateau? You know what I'm saying? Even with them, those two are questionable, because when you think about a top star, you think about the John Cena's, you think about all the all those guys like Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino, and the torch was passed, of course, from Cena to Roman. But you know, it's just not there, because they always bring back legends to continue that standard of what they used to be. Like they keep bringing back the Goldbergs, the the Rock came back for the first episode of SmackDown. Just recently, Stone Cold Steve Austin came out for 316. Like, just for that segment, for that pop, for that, just that electricity, literally, of what they brought to the table back then and still has to this day. That lets you know that they're not so keen on what they have in front of them now. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, even though it's great to see The Rock, it's great to see Stone Cold, it's great to see Goldberg every now and then, but for me personally, I think it's a continuous slap in the face to these young talent. For, you got this old guy coming in and taking up this young kid's spot to see what he got, because you're still reliving what this guy did 10, 20, 30 years ago. But, which I understand, but at the same time, like, they had their time, they have their moment, they have their opportunity to do what they did, and they're forever indebted. But at the same time, what does that do for the future? What does that do for Roman Reigns? What does that do for Seth Rollins? What does that do to Ali, Apollo, Buddy? You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's the crazy part. And that's why they continue to put the championship in such a spotlight on Brock Lesnar, because there is no true top star in the WWE. So they just continue to bring him and put these guys over. The Rollins is the, Reigns. But, like, if you watch all of my stuff, you guys should know that I'm not the biggest Brock Lesnar fan, but at the same time, I truly respect his just his presence, because it's literally unreal. I went to a Monday Night Raw in Charlotte, and I had the privilege to see Brock for the first time ever. And even though I'm not the biggest fan, I was recording and getting that recording of him coming out, and I was excited because of the aura that he brings, of his presence is just crazy, because he still has that, just that presence to him to magnify what that specific storyline, that feud, or specific match. So it's a good thing and a bad thing as far as bringing legends back and doing this storyline and doing this little 2-3 month run with this certain superstar. My thing is this, okay? If you're gonna bring a legend back, let them put over a certain superstar that you want over, whether baby or heel. Like, if you're gonna bring in a Goldberg to face off against, I don't know, EC3, let EC3 beat Goldberg. You know what I'm saying? Like, that does EC3 a favor moving forward. He just beat a WWE Hall of Famer, and that give him that leverage for a championship shot. You know what I'm saying? Then, or versus a Goldberg defeating EC3, and what does that do for EC3 in the future? Like, it does nothing for him to just flounder and flounder and flounder and flounder. For what? For Goldberg just get that last hurrah in the sun and get a championship shot. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling that. Saudi Arabia match between him and the Fiend. Like, I was so sure the Fiend was gonna win, but when Goldberg won, I wasn't shocked. I was not shocked at all. Because that's what they do. They build up a character. The Fiend has so much promise. So much promise. And you kill it by getting this legend over. For what? You know what I'm saying? This young character. And it's just, that's why they don't have legit stars. They keep continuing to bring these legends back, only for them to have one last hurrah for the title, with the title for like what, a month or two, not even a whole month. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's why there is no legit star. You don't have that presence. You don't have that. You don't feel that electricity when certain guys come out, because you know if a legend comes back, they're gonna lose to him. You know what I'm saying? So that begs the question, like, okay, what's in store for wrestling in the next 5-10 years? What's going to happen when, you know, these certain guys are just completely done with wrestling? They don't want to come back. They don't want one last paycheck. They don't want to continue to put their bodies online. So like, what's next? Are you going to continue to ride the coattails of these legends, or are you finally going to step up and let these young guys go and do their thing? They did what they did. They had their time in the sun. You know, of a Brock Lesnar, of a Goldberg, even Cena to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's fair to say and ask, like, what's next for WWE within 2025, 2030, you know what I'm saying, 2040, you know what I'm saying? So like, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be really weird, but at the same time, it's fair to ask. And so yeah, like, it's very interesting to see what's in store for wrestling. Hopefully I'm actually in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully I'm at the broadcast table. You know what I'm saying? As much as I talk about WWE, I think it's kind of obvious of what I want to do with myself, with this channel. As much work I put into this. Wrestling is everything. I have so much passion for this. So the state of wrestling is an interesting one. So hopefully you guys like, share, subscribe to this channel. Sports Talk with Kendrick. Make sure you hit the notification bell. And until my next video. Oh, yes, sir.